Hey everyone, it is Brittany here with Green Bee Flowers. So it's the last week of February. We are out here in the greenhouse. The weather outside is plus 5 degrees Celsius and it feels like so long since we have had even remotely nice weather. It has been a hard winter here in Southwestern Ontario. We have gotten a lot of snow. We've had a lot of deep freezes. It has been a lot of work keeping the regular hoop house from freezing so that our fall planted crops, which we planted thinking we would have a winter like last year, would actually survive. So Nick has come out every single night, probably for the past 3 weeks, topped up the heater with fuel, been trying to keep the greenhouse from freezing, covering up the ranunculus and the anemones and the eucalyptus in here, just because it has been so cold this year. But I'm happy to say that we are finally hitting spring. The deep freeze has finally lifted. We are seeing just life come back in the greenhouse, and I'm so excited to show you all of the things that we have going on in here because it is just the beginning of what is going to be a super exciting flower season. Let's get into the video. Green Bee Floral Co. is a 2.5-acre cut flower farm and boutique floral shop located in small town Southwestern Ontario, Canada. We began growing flowers in 2019 as a way to find joy and beauty amidst the struggle of raising our medically complex child. In 2023, we opened our dream floral shop in our little hometown, bringing modern floral design, our favorite luxe imported blooms, and seasonal local flowers to our community. Welcome to our little flower-filled world. We're so glad you're here. Now, I wanted to start here from the back of the greenhouse because this is the first year we have actually tried to force bulbs in the greenhouse itself. Last fall, one of our staff members, Auntie and Nick, actually potted up a whole bunch of bulbs while myself and one of our other staff were working on wedding season. So this all happened in September and October of 2024. We have varieties of hyacinths in these crates here. We have tulips as well over here in varieties that I know we can grow and move through the store earlier. Now, the original plan with these was actually to have these blooming by Valentine's Day. But because this greenhouse isn't heated all the way to the back, and because it's been so deeply cold, we just didn't have the ability to get these going earlier the way I wanted them to. But I'm so happy to see life in these now. We're probably about 3 weeks away from tulips, maybe 2 weeks away from hyacinth. I can already see some of the buds deep down in some of these crates here. And I'm really excited because when our farm flowers start coming off, it's like the first indication to all of our clientele in the store that we are ready to go and our season and local flower season has begun. So this is a great sign. I'm so excited to see this. And we have these hopefully staggered so that they will be ready anywhere between like 1 to 4 weeks before we start seeing our blooms coming up on the main farm. There's a lot of snow to melt though before we get to that point. Now this patch here are the Snapdragons. Probably about a month ago, we went through and chopped off all of the extra growth on top of these, and I'm happy to see that even despite the cold, many of these have lots of green at the roots. So this means that they were going to start re-leafing up, and we should be having a good crop of Snapdragons come up in here within the next like 6 to 8 weeks, which will bring us right in line, hopefully, for Easter. That is the goal. This entire greenhouse and the majority of our spring farm, the goal is to get the flowers blooming consistently and ready to go for the big holidays. So that is Easter in April and Mother's Day in May. We are right on schedule for this, and I'm really excited about that we were able to overwinter these Snapdragons for beautiful blooms earlier in the season. Now, perhaps most exciting in the whole greenhouse is the Ranunculus. So we did 2 fall plantings of Ranunculus. When I ordered my Ranunculus for 2024, I ordered enough so that I would be able to do a spring planting and a fall planting. And so behind me, you can see this entire row just has so much life to it. And it's really exciting actually to see that there are long, stable buds coming up on the Ranunculus, which is so surprising because it's been such a task to keep these alive. And even 3 weeks ago, these Ranunculus did not look this good. So when I ordered for 2024, like I said, I brought in enough so that we could do fall plantings, and we scheduled kind of the plantings around colors because I wanted to have stuff that would match some of our tulips that are coming up in, you know, April. And honestly, some of the ones that are in this row are violas, chocolattas, some of the reds. These were actually supposed to be, like I said, ready for Valentine's Day, so that was a little bit fun. However, on the other side of the greenhouse, we do have rows that were pre-sprouted and put in December that are now starting to break through the ground, and those are going to be ready hopefully for Easter and Mother's Day. It's really exciting to see so much life in the greenhouse. Look at all of these buds. And then over on this side here, you can see all of these little sprouts that are starting to come up. These are our whites and our salmons and our blushes that are going to come up, and we will have these ready in spring. Now over on the other side of the greenhouse is where we have the anemones planted. Now these, we did not pull these up last summer. We left these anemones in the ground at the end of the summer. They went dormant, and then in the fall they started to put up more foliage, and we even had some blooms already on these before Christmas. Now these are blooming. We are hoping to see consistently above 0 temperatures in the greenhouse now overnight for like the next however many days. Spring is here, guys, and these are just gonna get better. So I'm gonna step out of the way just so you can get a good look. You can see there are blooms all the way down that row and buds all the way down that row. And that's really exciting for me because I love anemones. They are one of my favorite flowers to grow. It's one of my favorite flowers to use. When you pick them early enough in the bloom cycle, they will actually give you a solid 5 to 8 days in a vase. And anemones are like tulips, where they do actually continue to grow off of this, like from the stem after they are cut. So it is really important to get those at the bud stage before you've developed like this much space between like the bloom head and like the crown. I call it the leaf crown, because the longer that space is, the older you know that anemone is. And I'm gonna see if I can find one in here just to show you what I'm talking about. So we're gonna use this guy because this is a great example. So you can see here, this is this ring of foliage that there is kind of around the actual bloom head itself. This is what I call the leaf crown. And basically under here, you have, more stem. And as this anemone continues to age, this part here is going to get taller. So much wind! And so sometimes when I order anemones in from the wholesaler, I will get them in. They'll be a little longer than this because those are grown in heated greenhouse with additional grow lights and things year round. But I can tell how old they are by how long this is here. So if they've been sitting in a cooler for like, you know, easily a week to 10 days, they're gonna have about this much height on them from this leaf crown here, because that's how much they've grown towards the light. And anemones will typically grow, I've noticed, about 1 to 2 centimeters a day, which is very on par with tulips. So just in the same way your tulips are gonna grow and get unwieldy and all over the place in the vase and you have to keep trimming them down, it is actually really useful to do the same thing with anemones because they will continue to grow as well. Those are the only 2 flowers that I'm aware of, especially in spring, that do this. But it makes it a really versatile bloom to use in arrangements because when you're building an arrangement, you can take that into account for how the anemones are going to like grow and change and shift and contort as they get older. I wanted to take a minute in the middle of this video to let all of you know that Green Bee Floral is on Patreon. So starting in 2025, I am going to be uploading to our Patreon community-minded posts, things like business advice, how to figure out what your cogs are in your business, general pricing information, and so much more. If you have questions or need how-tos on how to do anything related to your flower farming world, I encourage you to follow us over on Patreon. Patreon is a cool feature because it allows our community to support us directly in a way that YouTube doesn't do. We as a family are in a position where, having a special needs child, we have a lot of house renovations that need to be done in order to make our space accessible for our son's growing needs. And so following us over on Patreon, using those modules, purchasing a paid subscription will really go a long way to help support our family and its growing needs. So thank you so much. I also want to encourage you guys, if you haven't and would like to become a channel member. Channel members will have discounted access to Patreon modules. They will also have access to all of our downloadable PDFs, how-tos on flower farming, things that you should know how to do, whether it's dividing dahlia tubers or learning how to properly seed hundreds of lupins in 1 year. I've got your back. And for those of you who don't know, 2024 was a really difficult year for us as a business. There are a lot of things and changes that happened that made it really hard for me to show up personally behind from the screen and really be motivated to share our flower journey. But coming into 2025 and with some huge decided changes that we are making, I am energized and ready to take all of you along on this flower farming journey with us again, ready to answer your questions and ready to give you the resources that you need in order to find success in your journey as well. If you choose to have a free Patreon membership, you will get access to all of the group chats that I am hoping to be able to build a thriving flower farming community a part of. Paid memberships will also get all of the downloadable resources as a part of that incorporated membership. $5 a month goes a long way to help supporting us and our needs and our child's changing needs as he gets older. So thank you so much for your support, and let's get back to the video. So these anemones I've picked because they have a little bit of frost damage. So these are not blooms that are sellable, but I'm going to bring these home and put them on my kitchen table and allow them to bloom out because they're still lovely, even if they won't last very long. Now, lastly, I wanted to talk about a few casualties from the deep freeze. While most of what we have in the greenhouse has done really, really well, we did unfortunately lose some of our older plants of eucalyptus. They just couldn't survive, even though we'd had them like covered and covered again in a mini hoop house on top of the hoop house. It was just too cold for them to make it through our Canadian winter. And so the young plants that I started last year, which are on this side, have done extremely well. They have, for the most part, made it through unscathed and are already putting on new growth, which is really exciting to see. But if you look at this side, you can see kind of a bunch of dead plants as you go back. Some of these are eucalyptus plants that we have been babying for a number of years. These got transplanted out here into the fall. I think had we put them in probably in the spring and given some of these large eucalyptus plants the opportunity to properly establish, they would have been fine. And even mulched, which you can see down the aisle here, we did have everything mulched really well. It was just too immediately cold for them to survive. And so basically the frost got in from the top of the branches and kind of like took its way or made its way down the plant and just took the whole plant out. Eucalyptus is not native to my climate, and so while I am disappointed, I am not surprised. And it is sad to see them go because eucalyptus is such a long labor intensive plant. But I have 200 more seedlings started this year. So while it sucks, it's a live and learn situation. We will figure it out and we will move on in the years to come with better solutions on how to keep the eucalyptus alive, because half of it did really beautifully and the other half just did not want to make it work. And that's okay. Half of the journey of farming is learning what works and what doesn't, and understanding that Mother Nature is going to do what it wants when it wants, and you can do everything right in the world to mitigate its effects as much as possible. But Mother Nature is still going to Mother Nature, and sometimes plants that are not meant to grow in your climate are just not going to make it. Now, even though it is 5 degrees outside today, there's so much snow that has to melt in the next couple weeks, and a lot of other farm tasks that need to be done. So a big one here is the second greenhouse that is being worked on, and hopefully by the end of the week needs to be wiggle wired in and the walls need to be up. And so Nick is hoping to get that done, I think, this week. Right now we're storing some of the extra tulip crates in here that need to be either put out to just finish their season out. Some of them need to go back and go into the greenhouse. It's a whole thing. And he's kind of working on shoveling, because even though this greenhouse is not as wide as the big one, it is longer. The plan in here is to have some butterfly ranunculus up one side. We're going to be doing bupleurum and nigella and orlea in the center, and then snapdragons, stalks, and larkspur in the far section here. So the rows aren't going to be as deep, but they will be much longer. So I think we'll be able to get close to the same amount of stuff as we do in that greenhouse, while also bearing in mind that this one's not going to have any additional tulip crates and things like that in it. Right now though, we just have to work on getting the snow away from the sides of the greenhouse so that they can actually work on getting the rest of the walls put in here so that the snow can melt, so that next week we can start planting in here, because we have to get this ground unfrozen pronto. Okay, so it is super duper windy outside, and I wanted to kind of touch base on some of the other plans around the structure of the farm this year. So we are going a little heavier on perennials this season. If you've been following along kind of since I started posting again for 2025, we are starting tons of delphinium. We have about 200 lupins going, which is probably going to end up being at least a full row of lupins. We have larkspur, which I am not growing as a perennial or even really a biannual because we haven't had the best luck with it, but we are growing 2 varieties of larkspur this year. Last year we amalgamated all of our foxglove together into one section of the farm, put in an entire row of rudbeckia. We also put in echinacea and we have about 1,500 peonies planted. And so we are going really, really hard this season on incorporating a lot more perennials into the farm. I've talked in the past about wanting to create kind of a mixed perennial space, and I still do eventually want to do that. But the next couple years, I really want to focus on getting it established, and getting like established plants in here, because we deal with some flooding here at the farm, especially when we get a lot of rain and a lot of snow, like throughout the winter and summer, respectively, but not because they're anyways. And so I'm hoping that by incorporating things like more forsythia and willow and hydrangea, especially along the hedges where we like come into the farm, so kind of like back there, I'm hoping to be able to mitigate some of the damage from like the water, because the greenhouses both sit on higher ground. The dahlia section of the field sits on higher ground, and then over in the far corner down here, it dips down again. So realistically, within the next year, probably to 2 years, we're going to have to truck some dirt in to kind of like level that out. And in the meantime, my goal is to be able to utilize like different types of perennials that'll bloom throughout the season, hopefully to deal with some of that residual water, because perennials put down deep roots, and they're able to like take a lot more of that like out and soak up a lot more of that. So that's kind of the plan. Now, where we are in like last year at the end of February, I think we had no snow. It was all melted. We could get in. We're starting to see like tulip buds kind of popping up. We were planting the greenhouse. It was a whole thing. This is a completely different year. And that's fine. It's given us, I think, a little bit of a slower start to the season, the rest that we needed. But the one thing I am a little nervous about is my feverfew, because we have had such mild winters the past couple years. I didn't order any more feverfew seeds. Feverfew is usually pretty hardy, so I do have high hopes for it. However, if for any reason it didn't make it through the winter, I have like 2,000 feverfew plants in the ground, and that would be a horrible loss, because feverfew is one of those wholesale plants for me that just gets me right through the spring. So that'll be fun to see. Anyways, we're headed back to the house now, so I will catch you on the flip side, and we will see you later. Now, other than the flower farm, there is a lot happening in the seed room. We are currently in the process of potting up the hundreds of lupins that I decided I wanted for the farm this year, because they had already started to outgrow their 4-cell trays. And so these guys here, oh no, they're literally all potted out of their 4-cell trays now. The roots were coming out of the bottom because they were so prolific that it was becoming quite a thing. So they've been potted up into a combination, depending on their size, of little square guys. Normally I use these for propagating dahlias, but because I'm not doing dahlia propagation this year, I know, I can't believe it either. Honestly, it's taken a huge load off my shoulders. But anyways, we're reusing those guys for these. These are just little dollar store square plastic seed starters, and compostable ones that we got from Sarah over at the Green Door Gardens plot when she was kind of working on cleaning out and closing out her tomato business. So there is a lot of these, and yeah, we are gonna have a great crop of lupin this year. And lupin is something I've always wanted to grow, but we've just never, I think, had the space or the wherewithal to figure out where I wanted to put it. So it's really nice this year to actually be able to think through the fact that, like, yes, I would like it. We're gonna grow a lot of them because I want a lot of different colors. It's just a mixed pack, so we'll see what we get. And I'm very pumped because lupin foliage is also really beautiful to use in bouquets and arrangements. So I think that that's really going to be excellent. I am preparing a video as well on how to germinate lupins and get them to grow, and the process of how we did that, because I think sometimes these like cold stratified perennials can be difficult. So if you are new and you have never done them before, that video will be for you. Also, in case y'all are wondering, the slowest plant that we had to germinate this year was not actually the Lysianthus, it was the Delphinium. And that was my own fault entirely. What I should have done is pre-sprouted the delphinium in the fridge the same way that I did the lupins and the larkspur, but I got a little seed happy when my seeds came in and I put it right in soil blocks, and I knew better, but I did it anyways, right? It was like my 6th year. I just thought sometimes I like to try the things. About half a tray is germinated and the other half is kind of starting to germinate here. But it's really just started to put sprouts out in the last like 3 days, and I put this in seed blocks on January 18th. So this is already 5-week old. Delphinium. That's okay. They'll grow out of their seed blocks really quickly and we will have to put them into larger pots anyways. Whereas the Lisianthus, I will say, whereas my Lisianthus is finally putting on true leaves, so that's exciting. It really is the longest plant in the world to grow. But the germination has been really, really good. Now it's just a matter of keeping them alive. And like I've said in previous videos, the moss doesn't bother me. So we are just gonna roll with this. They are actually looking quite healthy, so I am very pleased about that. But these guys germinated weeks before, and these guys went in January 16th. So these babies are also like 6 weeks old. 6-week-old Lisianthus, okay, versus 3-week-old lupin. Love that for us. All right, flower fam, so that is the update. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you are as ready to get 2025's flower farm season underway as we are. Thank you so much for watching. We will catch you in the next video. Bye, guys.